Welcome to the Real Estate Investing School podcast. I'm your host, Joe Jensen. Today, our guest is Kelsey Ingalls. Now, Kelsey is an active duty naval officer from St. George, Utah. She's stationed in Virginia right now, and she's currently focused on building a rental portfolio in naval-based hotspots. So I'm excited to talk to her about that. Welcome to the show, Kelsey.
Hi, thanks, Joe.
Well, we're excited to kind of hear your story and everything that you've been doing. So you're from Utah, St. George. That's where I live right now. How long have you been out in Virginia?
I've been out in Virginia since early May 2020.
Okay. Nice. How was that being on a naval base during the COVID shutdown craziness?
We had, as most of the world, a lot of restrictions, a little bit less
Yeah.
than being on a ship, but it was interesting times, that's for sure.
I could imagine. That's crazy. Cool. So you've been out there a few years though. I guess we'll just start at the beginning then. How did real estate become a part of your life? Like what kind of turned you on to it to think like this is something I should pursue? And how did you end up getting into your first property?
So my dad always told me they're not making any more land, so buy it while you can. So his goal was always to try and buy properties. So he bought the property our cabin's at when I was younger, and we built a cabin there, and it's been in the family forever. And then when I graduated college from upstate New York and was moving to San Diego for my first duty station, my goal was to try and find a property. And San Diego's a little bit of a crazy market, but I was able to find a 1-bedroom, 1-bath condo in San Diego. And then from there, it made sense looking at the rental prices versus like what we get as military officers, that what we get as military officers normally covers your rental or a mortgage. So I'd rather be putting money towards a mortgage than in someone else's pocket. So that kind of spurred my plan to try and buy a house every duty station. And then hearing about the real estate investing school and trying to like learn more ins and outs, I thought that was a great opportunity to try and build my own education and knowledge.
That's awesome. So you saw your dad dabbling in it. You knew it was important. Then you got your first deal. Let's talk a little bit about that. Did you do that as a primary residence, or what kind of, how did you find the deal? How did you tackle it? How did you decide that this was the one? I know the first ones can always be kind of different.
Yeah, so it was very nerve-wracking. I was in upstate New York. The house was in San Diego, California, and I was unable to fly out to see it. So I was doing everything via like Facebook, Skype, Messenger, video chat, and everything was going within like 1 to 2 weeks. So I tried to get all of my financing in order. I wasn't in the Navy long enough to take advantage of the VA loans. So I had to figure out other creative ways to get money, a mortgage. And Navy Federal actually dropped me right before I was like after I put the offer in.
Oh, no.
So I had like a quick emergency call to Quicken Loans, now Rocket Mortgage, and they like saved me. But it was in Mission Valley, which was 15 minutes from everything in San Diego. So it wasn't going to be an easy drive to base. It felt like a great location. And it just, walking through it, my realtor gave me good vibes that it was a good choice. So I just decided to pull the plug on it. And
That's
actually
awesome.
it just started a trend where I'm now on my third house that I've bought, and all of them have been sight unseen.
There you go. There you go. That's awesome. It's kind of nice like that you started off that way to just realize like, because it's already scary, your first one, just because there's so many unknowns. And then you're like, it just normalized the whole process of even doing it sight unseen, which is powerful. So you knew you were going to be transferring to California from New York. And so you were just ahead of the game trying to get a place lined up before you got there. And now you've done that.
I knew my deadline. I knew when I was moving there and how long I would be there.
Cool. That's awesome. And you, so let's talk about the loans, because I think it's so interesting. When I first was getting into this, like I just thought loans were just, they followed this certain golden rule and everybody had the same rules and everybody did the same thing. And obviously that wasn't the case, right? Because your lender changed something last minute and then you went to a different lender. Like, let's talk about that of like, what do you know why they dropped it and why the other one accepted, or like some of the details on that, if you don't mind sharing?
They said that I didn't have enough like credit history because I was just a college student that they didn't have enough like backing for a property like that in San Diego to make sure like I could afford it. Even though, which is like one of the things I look at now, is you can look up online exactly how much money an officer is going to get in the military per month
Yeah.
based on their rate, and like Navy Federals and like Navy Federal. So like I was kind of shocked that they didn't know how much I would have each month to pay for it. But that was what they told me, was that I didn't have enough liquid capital just in case. And Quicken Loans was able to work with me instead.
So the U.S. Navy, the Federal Credit Union, they were concerned about how much capital you had at the time, liquid capital, and your credit history, because you didn't have a ton of credit
Mhm.
history. But
Right.
then Rocket Mortgage, they looked at the same situation and they were like, yeah, we'll loan on it.
Yep. And it was
Like
actually even a
that
better
one
rate.
principle right there. It's crazy because I wonder how many people stopped right there. You know what I
Mm.
mean? I'm trying to get a loan. The lender said I can't do it. I'm already scared to do this anyway. If it's a sign I'm out, and then they just don't get a loan. I've had that happen to me where this lender says absolutely not, and then this lender says yes, and it's like
Mhm.
nothing changed over here. It's just the eyes of the lenders, and I just bring that up to encourage people like to keep going, find a different lender until one says
Yes.
yes, because that could have stopped your entire journey, and maybe you wouldn't have had the momentum, and who knows how long it would have been before you jumped into the game. So that's
Right.
cool that you just pivoted and found another lender.
Yeah, it was a lot of late night phone calls, but ultimately that little bit of extra work and the stress really propelled me to make sure like, hey, I put an offer on this house, it got accepted. I need to do everything in my power to like make it happen.
Yeah,
And I'm not gonna stop until I've pretty much exhausted all resources. So
that's cool. So do you still own that house then, or did you end up selling
um,
it?
I do not. We had to end up selling it due to like relationship stuff. Um,
Sure.
but I ended up making about 100,000 on that house in about 2.5 years. Had to split it 50-50, but I was able to use that money to buy the house I'm currently in, which is a 4 bedroom, 2.5 bath house in Colonial Beach, Virginia, that I'm going to be able to rent out
Cool.
for $2,500 to $2,800 a month, and have been house hacking since I moved in.
You get that, everybody. You can even off half the profit of a California house, you can go from a 1 bedroom to a 4 bedroom, even with half of it. So I
Exactly.
love that. So you've done it a couple times. Now, you said when you first got going, you weren't able to use the VA loans. So the VA loans are a really amazing, awesome, powerful tool when it comes to investing, because you get special interest rates, no PMI, no down payment. I mean, they're God's
Right.
gift to real estate investors, and we appreciate your service. You guys earning that spot, and it's cool to see people take advantage of it. But you said you weren't able to use it the first time, even though you were active military. Was there like a time period you have to be to get
Mhm.
into it,
I
or how does that
hadn't
work?
Right. I hadn't met the minimum requirements of being active duty yet. I was about a month short of when I got the
Mm,
house. Um, and if I, even though I had an offer on the house, they weren't willing to let me wait for the closing time period to make that happen. So now I can use them. Unfortunately, I'm stuck under like the old policy. So I have like an overall cap associated
right.
unless I refinance my two loans underneath the VA program. Because the new one, there's no cap.
Yeah, which is crazy. Do you know how that works with no cap? They just kind of ballpark every time, decide if they're going to or not, because they're not really going to let people have like $10 million in VA loans, are they?
They have a spreadsheet based on like single family versus multi-family units, and they give you like up to that amount. So it could be up for a single family, depending on the location, it could be up to like 1.5 million. Where
Right, like in Hawaii, I
multi-family,
know there's
mm-hmm,
obviously a lot more expensive out there. So they base it off of where you're buying the home
yep,
and what the going rate for homes in that area is, basically.
yes, and then
Oh,
they compare it to what you get as an officer for your housing allowance.
and they actually, the VA loans want to make sure that your housing allowance will cover the mortgage.
Yes.
So that's one thing I love about lenders too, because lenders are a huge pain in the A. Like not the lenders, but the
Mhm.
process of like getting them every document that you've ever touched in your life and your
Right.
firstborn child. Like it's insane. But man, it's really cool because especially for a newbie, for a new person into it, the game of real estate is risk mitigation, right? Like, how can I
Mhm.
not mess this up and hurt myself? And the lenders have a really powerful tools and a lot of money invested in to making sure that they're mitigating their risk. Which
Right.
means if you follow whatever they tell you have to follow, which you have to get their money, you're probably going to be pretty safe because they want to make sure that it's all good too. And so if you can do that, it's like it's really a protection for you. So I love that they kind of include all that and think of those pieces. And it's like just jump in and do whatever they say, and you're probably going to be fine.
Yeah, it's gonna be great. There's especially on like the VA requires all the extra home inspections, so you find out a lot more about the house than you would otherwise. But also with like the current housing market, a lot of people have been turned down for using VA loans because a lot of people know what goes into them. But to that, like I would say, you just have to add personal touches or try different strategies to go into that. Like my house up in Newport, I wrote well, it was supposed to be a handwritten letter, but the seller was on a road trip and didn't have a mailing address, so he just did an email attachment. And he liked the personal touch and was willing to go through the VA requirements because of the personal touch. So it's like
I
not
love that.
not forgetting that.
I'm glad you mentioned that because I think that's kind of like a lost art a little bit. We feel like everything, especially as real estate investors, it's like it's all about the numbers. We can get very like businessy with it. And I think we forget like a lot of times people this is someone's home and they want to sell it to somebody that's gonna love it like they do. They have an emotional attachment to this thing. And I remember when I was buying my first place in Hawaii, I did the same thing. I did like this nice little letter and had like a picture of me and my family and like just made it like this is who we are. This is why we want this thing and made it very real.
Mhm.
And I mean, I don't know if that made the difference or not, but I got the house. So, you
Yeah,
know,
you never
um,
know.
yeah, I think that's a really cool touch to be able to have. Because me personally too, like if someone's going to buy something I'm selling, if it's all equal, I'm going to pick the one I think it's going to help or that I feel some sort of
Yeah.
emotional outreach to. Like that'd be awesome. Like I'm a single dad, and it's
Mhm.
like if I could help out someone in my boat, you just feel that. It's like
Right.
that's cool that you're able to have that personal touch. I think I'd
Mhm.
encourage people to remember that,
For sure.
especially with the house hack stuff when you're doing primary residence loan, you know?
Yes.
That's super cool. That's great. So let's talk about that. So you've done it a couple times and you did it in California and then you transferred to a new base and you just bought one in
Mhm.
that place or like how did the next couple go down?
Yeah. So I found out I was got orders to Virginia, started looking for houses in Virginia right before the world shut down with COVID. I closed on this in March of 2020, like two
Nice.
days
Good timing.
before COVID ended
Yeah.
everything. Sight unseen, my cousin walked through it for me with a video camera and
There you go.
sent it to me. And then I actually moved here and was not allowed to live in it for the first 2 weeks because the military made me quarantine in an on base hotel.
Nice.
So I finally got all my stuff like a few months later and was able to move in. And I've had 3 roommates now that are also military officers. And
Nice.
I've been renting out the rooms to them, which has been great because I don't need a full 4 bedroom house by myself. And then
Right.
I got engaged this year, and so we both got order. He's active duty military, so we both got orders up to Newport, Rhode Island. So we were like,
Mm.
we're gonna try and find a house up there, which we feel like we kind of missed the ball a little bit. The winter market is a lot slower and like
Mm.
cheaper in Newport, and we hit it right in like right before summer. So the prices and like everything went up a little bit, but we were able
Yeah.
to get a house up in Newport, sight unseen. We tried to do a trip up there over the weekend to look at all the houses. We looked at 13 houses. By the time we flew home, there was only 3 remaining.
Wow.
Yeah.
Geez, they're just going. And then you didn't even get any of the ones you saw.
No. So the one we got was on the market. My dad actually sent it to me and was like, "Hey, what about this one?" And I was like, "Sure, like I'll look at it." Had my realtor walk through it. She was like, "Yeah, I think you should put an offer in." We went to like put an offer in, and the guy we are gonna put like a contingency, like we need an answer by midnight or by tomorrow.
Hmm.
And the realtor was like, so you could do that, But the guy selling the house went on a road trip. He's like 88 years old, doesn't have a phone, doesn't really have email. Um,
Nice.
he just said that he was going to talk to us when he wanted. And so he's going to
This is my
call
kind
us.
of guy.
Yeah. I was like, okay. So we submitted the letter instead, which I wanted to include anyways. And so I submitted the letter, and we were about 15,000 below the highest price. And he ended up picking us, and we were very,
Wow.
very lucky.
That's
Yeah.
really cool. Did he say why he picked you over the higher offer?
He said that he liked the personal touch, and he felt that we would take care of his house, that his family, like he raised his family in. Because
That's
like we
so
put in
cool.
there that we were like dual mill, and that we were looking forward to starting our next chapter up there in Newport, um, which is like all true.
Yeah.
And he loved that. And then we just worked out.
That's super cool. I
Mhm.
love it. So at the beginning you were saying when you bought your first place, you're just like, yeah, I was so nervous. Like you're scared about it. It sounds like now, does buying a home scare you anymore? Is it nerve wracking? Is it kind of the same still, or do you feel more comfortable with it?
You would think I would get more comfortable with it, but the price of the houses that I've bought have like exponentially gone up.
Right?
So it's still very nerve wracking. But it's like I know I can like figure out a way to make it happen. Like this one, our Newport house, my VA loan didn't cover the whole down payment, like cover it all. So
Mm,
I had to find $50,000 for down payment. So it was kind of like a last minute scramble of trying to find the funds between my fiance and I, and the stock market going up and down. And like two
hmm.
weeks ago it was at this much, which would have completely covered it, and now it's like this low. And um
Yeah.
so just trying to realize, which my coach Emily has like brought up, is like scaling, and like figuring out now might be the time to pull in investors. We're like figuring out other ways to use other people's money, since I don't, being like in the military, I don't have a ton of just loose liquid cash around or capital.
Right.
A lot of it I've put into properties that are sitting there, or other creative ways, like maybe I use a HELOC next time. But trying to be more creative with how I get my next house, which we just found out we're moving back to San Diego. So that
Oh
house
wow.
search has begun.
Yeah, and those prices are a little higher than they were when you bought your first one out there.
Significantly.
Which is how it goes. It's crazy, right? We're all in that
Yeah.
ballpark. I was just talking to a student just before this call, and they were just talking about like how they're buying this new primary house hack, and they're just dying because it's like nothing compared to their last house that they paid half the
Mhm.
price for, and it's double the
Right.
size. And I'm like, I know, me too. But I love what you said, Kelsey, about how you're like, you still get nervous. Like, it's still a lot. You're like, hey, like, I
Mhm.
got to make sure I do this right. It's still a lot of money. It's a lot of
Right.
like moving parts, and there's pieces you want to make sure you do it right. And I love this quote where it says, courage is not the absence of fear, it's action in the face of fear. And I love that because you're like, yeah, it's still scary, but like I do it anyway. You know what I mean?
That
Like that
that
doesn't
quote's in my
stop.
planner.
Is it really? I love
Yes,
it.
that's awesome.
That's so cool. And I just think it's so important. And there's this attribute that you have that I think is vital for any sort of entrepreneur, investor, is like, I'm gonna figure it out. Like this like belief, this faith in figuring it out, even if you don't know how all the pieces will work. Obviously, there's some big parts. You're like, I gotta vet this out, vet this out, vet this out. And now there's 20% of variables I can't figure out, but I know I will along the way, you know? And that
Mhm.
attribute I think is so priceless. And I find it when I've got deals done, it's just like, I'm going to find a way to make this work no matter what. And then you just do.
Right.
Even though it's like, it can be scary on the onset because you're like, there's still some question marks here. How's this going to work out?
Right.
But what's
Exactly.
unique about real estate is a lot of times you have an out if you can't figure that out. You believe you will, and most time you will. But
Mhm.
once in a while, if you can't put all the pieces, usually you'll have an out last minute where you may have lost some time, but you're not going to like lose everything.
Right. For sure.
That's super cool. So now you guys are house hunting in California to go out there. You can still
Mhm.
take advantage of the VA, or have you maxed out your VA benefits where you no longer can do the VA homes?
So I don't have anything left on my VA loans, but he has stuff left on his VA loans, so we could use his. Um, so we're looking at different options there and distance from the base that we're going to be at, um, and just what we're looking for. We're hoping to have like a puppies, and then finding a yard in California is different. But then like it's hard when you're like buying a house in the military because you have like a set period of time, like max
Mm-hmm.
like 2 to 3 years at that location, and then what are you going to do with it? Are you going to sell it? Are you going to rent it? Well, if I'm my end goal is to rent it, then I need to buy, like, at a house that's going to be good for the rental market, and
Yeah.
that's going to it's not can't be a house that I love where I'm like emotionally invested in because I'm only going to be there a short period of time. So we're trying to look at that right now and like what kind of rental we want to get in California and decide on that. Like maybe we just suck it up and get like a 1 bedroom apartment because that makes the most sense rental wise for the future.
Mm-hmm.
So we're trying to decide that right now before we jump right into like condos or townhouse or single family homes.
Yeah, and then that's the key thing, right? When you're doing this house hack style, where like, hey, I'm going to go buy this as a primary. I know I'm not going to stay there long term, long term. Like I say, you got to buy it as if you're going to turn around and rent it out. And if the numbers work then they're for sure going to work in 3 years from now, probably. I mean, nobody
Exactly.
knows, but they should. And if you can buy your primary that way, you're going to be in a way better place. And like I say, the person that fell in love with it because the door is pink and they buy it, but the numbers are just all whack if they ever try to leave.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that's a way safer place to be in because, sometimes if you go to sell, like the sales price is way more volatile than the rental price.
For
And
sure.
so you can be a lot safer going, hey, I know I'll be able to rent this out than, oh, I'll just sell it when I leave because who knows what the sales market will look like.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
That's super cool. And the advice I always give everybody is if you can get the numbers to where it'll, be self-sufficient or cash flow a little bit when you leave, go buy the nicest thing you can afford. Go buy the most expensive thing you can get a loan for. Like, especially if it's VA and you're putting zero down, or if you're doing, but
Mm-hmm.
even at 5% or 3.5% on FHA or whatever, like go buy the nicest thing you can possibly qualify for. That will still cash flow when you leave. Because who knows when you won't be able to qualify for that loan. Like, I wish I had done more of that when I had this big active income from sales and was doing all these
Mm-hmm.
things. It's like, wish I'd leveraged that more. But I was like very conservative, like, oh, I'll buy it, a nice little starter house and this little
Mm-hmm.
house. Like, should have just bought the ballingest thing I possibly could have that would still cash flow when I leave. Because
Yeah.
I'd rather have, if you buy $1 million home that's going to double in value over the next 10 years, you made $1 million. You buy a hundred
Mm-hmm.
thousand dollar home that doubles in the next 10 years, you made 100,000. It's like, go for the million, especially if you're only putting 5% down, 50 grand or zero. Go for the biggest thing that'll still cash flow.
Exactly. Yeah.
So
Like,
that's awesome. That's super. So you guys are thinking kind of like, what's your game plan then with real estate right now? You've obviously been doing a bunch of the house hacks, the Navy hotspots. It sounds like you can keep doing that for a while. That's cool that you have both of your benefits that you can cash out or take advantage of.
yeah. We actually have 3 houses right now. So he has a house in Corpus Christi, Texas. I have the house here in Virginia, and then we have the house up in Newport, Rhode Island. So our goal is we're going to get a house in every duty station. Sorry.
Love it. You're good.
um, but like we know where the military is going to get stationed. We know how much they're going to get paid. We know what they're looking for. So we're really looking to scale and see like if we can expand on that.
I love it. I love it. That's super cool. So the VA loan thing, I think, for anybody that's military that's listening, that's obviously something you should tap into. So are you using a special lender that's like the best with VAs, or are you still just using Rocket Mortgage? Are they the best with VAs, or does it really matter? Or what advice would you give someone trying to use a VA loan? What kind of lender they should be looking for?
So we have applied to like the big ones, Rocket Mortgage, Navy Federal, USAA, but we've found, at least in Newport, like the small local lenders were way better.
Mm,
So I would say you kind of have to shop around and see
yeah.
like what that market's looking at. Here in Virginia, it was the big name ones gave us the best rates, best options. But in San Diego, it was the big name markets. So I think it really ultimately depends on like what kind of market you're in. But we've had luck with the big name Rocket Mortgage. I had Lakeside here, which was sold off from a big to Lakeside bought it from another company. And then our current one is Movement Mortgage up in Newport, which is a small little local lender. And
Okay.
their service was incredible. Like they bent over backwards to help
Nice.
with like military time zone differences, me getting on being on a ship for a little bit, time
Mm,
zone, travel. So I think if you're looking for like the personal touch with the VA loan, the local lenders are the best ones. Um, and then if you want just a standard VA process, the ones that have the most experience are like Rocket Mortgage, USAA, Navy Federal. They do it all the time, but it's not quite as personalized.
yeah. That's cool, and something that's unique, and everybody should think about, and this might be a play for you, obviously too, is what's interesting about VA loans and FHA loans, but VA loans also is they're assumable, which means like if you go, you can actually give someone your loan. If you wanted to sell your house and they couldn't qualify for a loan, you could let them take over your loan, actually switch it into their name, not like a subject to pace
Mhm.
morby and like kind of behind the scenes thing, like literally put the loan in their name. But you could do the same thing. So if you're going to go try to find a new house in California, you could find someone who's VA already selling their house. And as a VA
True.
loan, you could assume their VA loan, and because if you have the benefits, then you could put that loan in your name and keep their 3% interest rate instead of going to like a 7 or whatever, which could be a really powerful tool. um,
It's a huge deal. And we noticed a lot of places up in Newport were here where like that was listed on the listing, like VA assumable loan.
yeah.
Makes a huge difference. Like the mortgage here is like a 2.1%, and the
Yeah.
mortgage up there is like 6.6. So it's a
Hmm.
huge difference. Um, and also like something that we can like keep in our back pocket if we ever do want to sell it. Like that's a positive.
Yeah, I think that's such a cool thing. And from my understanding, and I could be wrong, is even a non-military could assume a VA loan, but the benefits of using up their what phrase am I using wrong? It's you're like
Benefits. Yeah, you're
it
right.
is benefits, yeah. So their
Yeah,
benefits would still remain in the previous person's name if a non VA person buys it or they don't have the benefits. So you don't
correct.
have to be VA to assume a VA loan, but
Hmm.
it's easier if you can do the benefits so they can get fully out of it.
For
Um,
sure.
and so
But
it's for you though, you said, okay, your benefits are almost used up because you've got a couple houses with it. You could refinance those houses into some sort of conventional loan and then free up your VA benefits again, correct?
yes, so I could refinance both the houses and then I would fall under the new VA rules, which is
Mm,
the no cap. Because right now the cap is 750,000. I'm like grandfathered under the old one because I have two loans. So I could
gotcha.
go to the uncap, which would be great for California
Yeah.
as an option. We're a little hesitant because the mortgage here is such a good
Right.
interest rate.
Like,
But then you like weigh it like then we don't have a down payment for a San Diego house. So all things to take in consideration. With the VA assumable though, just expect a little bit longer closing because normally it takes around like 60 days for those just because of all the
mm.
paperwork. But it's definitely a great option to keep in like if you can find one and they're willing to do it.
Yeah, and for anybody listening, whether on the selling side or the buying side, it can be really powerful. If someone's really got trying to sell something and they can just like, hey, you can assume my amazing loan, it can give them such an advantage. They could probably get a higher sales price if they're selling the
Mhm.
home with an assumable 2% interest or something. So really, really cool, powerful tools. It's funny to me when I was first getting into real estate investing, how much of my time and energy was going into learning about loans and lenders and debt. I was like, oh, this is like my whole job is just interviewing lenders. Like that becomes such a powerful, powerful part of the game. I mean, that's like what we've been talking about this whole time, right? But it really is. It's a game changer, especially for the average person. Like, say you're working in the military, you're not making $1 million salary, you know, and it's like, but if you're able to be smart and understand how to leverage debt, especially with little money down, you can do some really, really powerful stuff to create like generational wealth, even without having this crazy high income, which is really cool.
Exactly. And we're lucky because we have the benefit that we're getting stationed in places that people go to like seek as their vacations. Like people want to go to San Diego, people want to go to Newport. People
Sure.
rent their houses in Newport for like 15 grand a month in the
Yeah.
summer.
That's crazy.
Like it's just crazy. So if we can build up our real estate portfolio, like we're going to set up our kids and like our future generations for success, so they don't have to worry about if they're going to have money for college, where that they for sure have to get a scholarship or anything like that. Like I remember being so worried about how I was going to pay for college because like my parents like didn't have a ton of money saved for us to go to college, and
Mm.
like knowing I can make money and pay off like half my mortgage or my entire mortgage with house hacking, and then have a house later where the mortgage is being paid by someone else, and like I can just hand that off to my future children is an amazing just like retirement egg too.
Yeah, I mean it's so cool, and it's funny because it's like, yeah, it's a headache. Yeah, there's some learning curve. Yeah, you got to like put some skin in the game. Like, but man, compared to not, it amazes me how many people just sit on the sidelines. They're like, oh, well, the lender needed all this paperwork, or I don't know, like I don't have to deal with roommates, like changing toilets, or what, the things people come up with that worry about. I'm like, so you just want to like work a 9 to 5 job for the rest of your life that you don't even like and have no assets and nothing to show for it? Like, is that like better than this headache? Because I'm not feeling that. You know what I mean? So
Exactly.
good for you for just kind of seeing through the intimidation and like doing it, which is super, super cool. Well, I'm excited to kind of dive into some of our final four questions, but I do want to kind of go through. Have you had any, failures throughout, your real estate career so far? Any like mishaps or big mistakes anybody can learn from, or is it just kind of all worked out?
Definitely has not all worked out. um House hacking can be really hard. I have a current roommate who we have very different cleanliness standards and like amount of stuff standards. Um,
Yeah.
so I was on a work trip and I came home, and my entire like most of my house was like filled with stuff.
Like, what is all this?
Yeah, like every cabinet, every square inch of the fridge, the freezer, like every square inch. And I was so like, I was like trying to remind myself like she's paying like $1,000 a month, like it'll be okay, and just like, but then like trying to weigh like, is my personal sanity worth $1,000 a month? Is there other ways like I can have this conversation? And so I've had to learn how to have a lot of really uncomfortable conversations with house
Mm-hmm.
hacking, which I think has like made it better. Um, my realtor for my Newport house almost lost the deal the day before closing.
Mm.
Um, so
How so?
she walked through the house, completely forgot that during the inspection she told the other realtor that the stuff that was still there could stay there and that it was fine. And then the night before closing, she called me and said that all this stuff's still in the house. I'm calling the other realtor and telling him we're not closing, like we're not doing this until they get everything out of the house.
Oh
And
my
like it's
God.
at a certain level of cleanliness, like it's unacceptable. And left me this voicemail. And like, I
You're
get
like,
it.
don't do that.
I'm like, no, it's fine. Like everything's fine. And she like I get all these emails and text messages from the other realtors, from Newport's attorney state, so from the attorney, from the lender, and everyone's like losing their mind, or like, we don't know if it's going to happen tomorrow.
Oh
And
my
she
gosh.
calls me at like 9 p.m. at night and is like crying and upset to me. And she's like, everyone just misunderstood me. Like, I don't know why everyone's mad at me. Like, I'm just trying to do my job. And I
Oh
was like,
wow.
are we closing tomorrow or not? And she's like, well, the other realtor said that you were fine with the stuff staying there. And I was like, yeah, I am. Like, I just want to close on the house.
Okay,
Everything
it's
is good.
tough.
We are good. Like, I can move some stuff out of the house. Like, I can move a dresser out. That's fine. Like, and she's like, well, fine. Yes, we're like, I got an invitation that we're closing tomorrow. I was like, okay, that's all I need to hear. Have a good night. Bye. And
Jeez, that's scary.
so, yeah, so there's always ups and downs. Like at the end of every good story, like there's some hills that you had to go through to get there. But I I should have trusted my gut instinct when like first met the realtor. Like I told her my budget, and she started sending me houses that were double my budget.
Mm,
Uh, she when we went up there to look, we had one weekend to go look at houses. When we got up there, all she wanted to do was show us these little cute shops and coffee shops and little things around town. And she only booked 3 showings, and we found the other 10 showings. So, like,
jeez.
I mean, part of it's on me. Like, I should just trust my gut, but I also was like, I don't have a ton of time. Like, she was recommended. I'm just going to stick with her. Um,
Yeah.
so, yeah, trust your gut.
Yeah, and yeah, don't be afraid to shop agents. That's one thing is
Mm,
like at the end of the day, this is on you. It's your life, it's your portfolio, it's your wealth, it's your money, it's your time, and whether we're talking about shopping lenders or shopping, agents, like you don't want to be abusive or like shady about it. It's not like you're looking, working with 2 agents and telling them each are exclusive with them. You never want to play those games. But like I say, if one's not working out, like you can say, hey, I'm looking at this other one if you haven't signed exclusive with them. Once you sign exclusive with
mhm.
them, and be aware, a lot of people don't realize like those real estate contracts they're signing, like I've seen some that are so gnarly. They're like, you're exclusive. Anything you buy in this state for the next year is through this broker
Yeah.
now. It's like, whoa, like, how about just this one property? Maybe if you do a good job. Like,
Read
so
the
read
fine
those
print.
contracts. Yeah. And then, like I say, and before you sign anything, yeah, shop around. Make sure you get, because a good real estate agent is like the best thing that ever happened. You know what I
Oh,
mean?
yes.
I have this one guy, Jason Carey on Oahu, and he is just the most professional real estate agent like I've ever used in my life. He's so on top of things. He was amazing. And he protected me on some really important deadlines that we were hitting. And he was like, hey, if you don't like, we were gonna maybe back out, but we were still negotiating, but the seller hadn't signed off on it. So he's like, we're gonna have to cancel because if you don't sign off on it, we're gonna lose our earnest money. Like he was protecting my earnest money, he was protecting my deadlines, he was so on top of every piece of it. It was just like, man, I loved working with him because I just knew like I'm in a safe place and I'm not going to get like
You were
blindsided
taken
by
care of.
anything. Yeah, so when you get a powerful, good real estate agent, it's awesome. It's such a huge tool. Same with lenders. I've had lenders that just like bend over backwards to make it work out, and I've lenders that were missing deadlines and like it's just a disaster too. So it's like if you find a good one, hold on to them.
Yes. Put them in the spreadsheet,
That's
your top
right. That's
number
right.
spreadsheet.
Exactly. So it's been so cool seeing your success, Kelsey, over the time here at the school and everything that you're doing. And I'm excited. I love Emily, your coach. She does like such a good job, and she was excited to have me talk with you, and I can see why.
She's the
Because
best.
it's really cool the stuff you're doing. Is there any specific kind of guiding principles or habits that you feel that you've applied throughout your process of kind of growing into this world?
Um, so the military has definitely helped. I've had to be very organized in time management, but I found being more specific with my time management. Like I would write on my calendar, like it's real estate investing school. And then I would go to like log in and be like, well, I don't know what I want to do today. So then I started scheduling like I'm going to do this podcast where I'm going to read this chapter where I'm going to look up this lender and like being very specific with my daily tasks towards my goals made it easier when I was like exhausted at the end of the day to actually make it
Mm,
happen. And realizing like sometimes you do need like that mental break, but if you're just tired, like just suck it up, do the hard work. But if you're starting to feel that burnout, like sure, take a pause from it. It doesn't need to be terrible. You don't need to add extra stress on. And then I would say the biggest thing is like keeping track of like a budget. So I try and go like every month and like make sure I canceled all those like free trial subscriptions or anything else that's going in there. And I know like me personally, like when I'm stressed and things, like the ads on Instagram or social media, like I'm more in the mood to like impulse shop. So like I will put a limit on my apps where I will delete my credit card information from my phone so I can't, and I'll log out of like Amazon or anything like that. So then like you don't realize how much like little money adds up until you see your credit card bills at the end of the month, especially when
Right.
you're under a lot of stress. And you kind of need that money to help with your real estate goals or just like any goals in general. So I would say budgeting, being specific with your goals, and then watching your burnout are my three big
I love
ones.
that. I love that. And just a note, I was thinking with the subscriptions, right? Here's the trick. Okay, everybody, here's a life hack. Sign up for any trial you want. You can cancel it at the exact same time you sign up. So sign up and then go right in while you're thinking about it and cancel, and you'll still get the 7 days. It doesn't cancel until after the 7 days. So if you wait till the 7 days, you're going to forget, and then it's going to renew, and you're in some who knows what contract. So the moment you sign up for the trial, go in and cancel it the next minute, and you're still good to go. So little life
That is
hack.
brilliant.
Yeah, because if not, you're going to forget. All right, well, sweet. Well, we're going to dive into our final four questions, unless there's anything else specific you want to mention about your journey so far. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So, question number one, Kelsey, what is a non-real estate related bucket list item you've recently checked off or you're excited to check off next?
I went to the NASCAR race in Chicago. Um, So I got to go
Nice.
see the first NASCAR race there. My next bucket item that I'm looking to is travel to Europe. So looking
Mm,
to go to Greece and just explore Europe a little bit.
there you go. I just heard about today. There's this new 42-day cruise from Florida out through Europe and Turkey and all these places or something like that. So, and
That
Greece
would
is
be
on the top.
perfect.
So just go get on a 40-day cruise and enjoy yourself.
That'd be amazing.
All right. Question number two. What book are you currently reading?
Um, How to Manage Rental Properties by Brandon Turner.
There you go.
Hmm.
Classic. Everybody
Yeah,
just
just
read
finished.
everything by Brandon Turner and
We
David
are.
Green and all the bigger pockets. Just read them all, just as a
Yeah.
staple. Just
And then
do
I
it.
finished Atomic Habits.
Mm, great one. That's a really good
Mhm.
one too. I love those. Yeah, the book Atomic Habits and Compound Effect, they're kind of like the same idea, but those books are just like such a staple. Like I said, how the little things just
Mhm.
add up over time. Even the little things of like buying a house every year, like that's a big thing, but it's also like a little thing that the compounding effect, if someone just did that every year for 10 years, you're set for life. Like that's it.
Mhm.
And I was told that my whole life, but I didn't do it until later. I was like, dang it. And so, it's like that compounding effect of just one property a year. It's like, will just skyrocket your life so much more for the average person than they could imagine, but it'll take 10 years to recognize it.
But you still have 10 years, so you can start the 10 years now.
Exactly. That's the thing is like that. I love the quote that never worry about how much time it takes to accomplish the goal. The time will pass anyway. It's like the next 10
That's
years are going
perfect.
to happen. So either you'll have 10 more properties or you'll have one. It's up to you.
Exactly.
I love that. All right. So what content or book or podcast or YouTube channel or anything besides anything we're associated with, what would you recommend people checking out?
The big one that I follow is obviously Bigger Pockets. I feel like
Hmm.
that's really easy and understandable for someone who's just getting in, all the way up to people who've been in for a decade. And you can find like really your niche there. And it makes it really easy to digest and what information they have. Especially if you're not willing to like go, like you're not quite ready to go buy a lot of products. They have a lot of stuff that's just free
Yeah.
that you can start using. So I really like them.
A cool hack with that I recommend people is go back to the very first episodes you can find back when Brandon Turner didn't even understand anything about real estate and his questions are so good because it's like he didn't know the answers, and he's legit like, hey, how does that work? Like, and I remember that's when I was starting, and I was like, these questions are so good because they weren't over my head. A lot of times it's like, what are they talking about? VA loan, this, that, like ARVs, but man, you go to the beginning stuff and it's like, but they ask really, really good questions to like explain those basics, which can be awesome. And the Real Estate Rookie podcast is good too with Bigger Pockets, but I like to go back to the early ones and just get like, before everybody knew what was going on, you get like a little more of a base foundation, I feel like.
Exactly.
All right. Well, last question, Kelsey, and then we'll let you get on your way. What would your text message to the world be?
Probably believe in yourself and just go for it.
I love that. That's so good. And it kind of goes back to like what we said at the very beginning of like, you just knew you'd figure it out. You had that faith that you're like, I don't know how it'll all work out, but I believe in myself. And so you're going to do it. I love that. What's the best way for people to keep in touch with you if you want people to keep in touch with you or follow your story?
The easiest way to get a hold of me with time zones is email. My email is kelsey.a.ingalls@gmail.com. You can find me on Instagram at kelsey.ingalls. It might be a little hard to add me with the whole military thing, but if you send me a message on Instagram first, I can add you. But I am more than happy to use those two platforms.
Awesome. I love it. Well, this has been a treat. It's always fun to talk with students and see what they're doing and everything. So this has been good. Thanks for being on the show.
Awesome. Thanks, Joe. Appreciate it.
All right. Well, this is Joe Jensen signing off for the Real Estate Investing School podcast, reminding you to believe in yourself and just go for it.